Okay, I'm going to talk you through all the work that I've done on the Matchless since I got it, to sort of give you an idea of kind of running an old British bike, what it takes. It's not straightforward. So I bought it. I bought it from Frank just over a year ago, and he'd had it in storage for 4 years because he bought it, I think, about 10 years previously, something like that, and. And he bought it, and the engine had a major problem. The previous owner had run it, and they'd forgotten to turn the oil on, and one of the cam followers had broken, which were unobtainium. But he managed to find a specialist builder, Richard, I've forgotten his name, and he took the Matchless engine, rebuilt it, and they managed to find a cam follower from the Morgan Owners Club, because these engines were also, as well as being used in the Brush Superior, they were used on the Morgan three-wheelers for a time. And luckily the Morgan Owners Club, they've got the finance, the money, and they'd had some new cam followers made. And so they were able to fit a new cam follower. The engine, it's new pistons, obviously, and bearings and so on, because it didn't have oil in it when it was run, and it was all done. Great. So then it was given back to Frank. But he always struggled with it. Above all, he couldn't get it to start. And one thing and another, and he kind of fell out of love with it, especially its failure to start. And so he mothballed it for 4 years. Mothballed it properly, it was all covered in grease and, but he just left it. And then I think he mentioned he was thinking of selling it. And so I contacted him because I've always wanted one. And not thinking he would sell it, but he did. He said, okay, yeah, make me an offer, and so we came to an agreement, and I bought the bike. But so it's been standing for 4 years, and so it needed recommissioning. So these are the things, not in any particular order, that I've done. So, well, first of all, I discovered that the battery wasn't charging. So I suspected the CVC unit, the control unit, because there's only two things. There's a dynamo, the CVC unit, that's it really. So anyway, cut a long story short, I put a new CVC unit in, a modern one, like an electronic one, rather than the original sort of mechanical one, and didn't make any difference. And I was messing about for ages and ages, and then I discovered that the reason it wasn't charging was because the dynamo had the wrong polarity on. Now, how that happened, I don't know, but it did. So you just spark it over, change the polarity, and hey presto, the bike was charging. So that was the first thing that needed doing. And I also got this is an old battery box, but inside the battery box is a brand new AGM absorbed glass mat battery just shoved inside, which you can't tell, but it is just a modern battery in there. So it's not lead acid or anything, so it's never going to leak. And you only need the battery for the lights and the horn. So anyway, so I put a new battery in there. Then I've put a new bulb. In the headlamp, so it's now a very bright LED bulb in there. Okay, I always say it's the bike is a bit of a mobile lighthouse, I always say, because it's an amazingly massive front headlight. But I've now got a very bright headlight and one that takes very little current. So because I always ride with my headlight on, so it's not putting strain on the charge system. So that was sorted. One other problem that I know that Frank had that was driving him bonkers was you've got a breather. This copper pipe here is a breather, and it ended just about by the rear chain. And I think the idea of them is that as they breathe, a bit of oil will come out, and that little bit of oil will go on the rear chain and keep it lubricated. But in this case, it would chuck out a bit of oil, but as soon as you put it on the side stand, it would pour oil out. I mean, pour oil out. Like a pint of oil would come out. Just a nightmare. So what I've done is I then connected a pipe and I've run it all the way up through the back of the bike, and then into the rear mudguard, along under the rear mudguard with these screws, and it comes out. I don't know if we'll be able to see it. Put my finger on it there. there. That's the bottom of the like breather tube. And ever since I've done that, it's been perfect. Now, whether anything's coming out the end there, or whether the oil's just sitting in like the bottom of the pipe, I don't know. But whichever is the case, it stopped. That oil doesn't pour out anymore, and that's great. So that was a big plus. And then I actually had the side stand lengthened and the angle altered, because another problem with this bike was that it leant right over on the side. You know, when you had it on the side stand, it was like way too far over. You know, you felt it was going to fall over any minute. So the local garage actually cut that, extended it, put steel in the middle and re-welded it to do it properly. And then they also repainted my toolbox for me and did a fantastic job. You know, it's a lovely gloss pack they did on that. Then I also checked the clutch and primary chain, and I found out there was one of the bearings was missing on the clutch, and so done that. Then the forks, and I don't know if he'd done this for storage, but I discovered the forks basically weren't working, and they just needed slackening right off because they simply weren't going up and down. And so by slackening off the various adjustments, we now have forks that do go up and down. So that was a big plus. So we're working through the faults, getting things sorted. Then I also changed, I had stainless steel exhaust pipes on, which I changed for chrome. Stainless steel, great, but they just didn't look the part. You know, there was that dull finish, and I wanted chrome, so I fitted chrome pipes on. I took I had to take the cylinder heads off because the bike had been fitted with a composite head gasket. So it was a thin layer of copper, then like a material a bit like asbestos, I don't know what it was, and then another layer of thin copper. The thing was, you could look in the gap and you could see that the asbestos sandwich in the middle was all missing. It was starting to just fall out. And so oil was beginning to leak out of both cylinder heads. So luckily, there was a chap on the Facebook group, his name I've forgotten, I'm sorry, he had a pair of solid copper head gaskets. So I took the heads off and I repainted all the barrels and the heads black and fitted new solid copper head gaskets. So that's all sorted. And then I fitted a new petrol pipe. And the petrol taps were leaking, so that had new corks on. And the petrol cap was leaking, so that's got a new cork on as well. So things like that went through the bike all okay. But the main thing was the starting. Now, I took the magneto off because I suspected that was what the problem was, really. And sure enough, it wasn't sparking reliably. So I took the magneto and I sent it off to be reconditioned. And I had it reconditioned and it came back and it was fine. Now here's the start of my problems, really, was that then it ran fine and then suddenly it started to run like a dog again. I thought, what is it? Now what I didn't realise was it was the magneto. Although it had been fully reconditioned, it hadn't been done properly. So it was a while messing about doing this, that and the other before I checked the magneto again. I thought, it's not right. So I sent it back again. And this time he remagnetized it. Now, why he didn't remagnetize it in the first place, I don't know. But it came back, done. Great, it ran. Then one day I'm out riding, and then it wouldn't start, and it was running like a dog. I don't know what the hell it was, and one thing and another. And so I had the carburettor, I sent it off and had it re-sleeved, etc. Just to check it was all okay. It was fine, but the bike still wouldn't run. It was then I realised that the magneto was wrong again, so I sent it back again, and this time he said there was some disc or something had broken actually in the, or bearing or something anyway, to stop it working. So great, I got it back again. Phew, this time surely done. Fine, I put it on, it's running like a complete dog again. I mean, it ran well, and then again it suddenly stopped not long after. Oh God, what is it this time? So in the end, I messed about with the carb again, and I ended up buying a new float chamber because, as I said, I think in another video, that if you tickle the carb and the bike won't start, then petrol floods out of it. And I was thinking, I wonder, if that's right. So I tried to check that the needle, and I rubbed the needle down with some Scotch-Brite and that to try and get it to seat properly. And basically, I think I ended up completely knackering the float needle completely. So I ended up having to buy a whole new float chamber, 200 quid. Put that on, still didn't work. It was then I realised that there is the advance and retard control ring in the end of the car, in the end of the magneto. Sorry. So this control ring with the white blob on it, if I move the advance and there, you see that's going right. Now for some reason that had come disconnected from the cable. Don't ask me how, but it had. And it turns out that was, the next magneto problem. So I did that. That's what I did a couple of weeks ago. And hey presto, finally now got a reliable bike. So the magneto being done was like 4 times. It was reconditioned, then it was remagnetized, then this broken thing inside was mended, and finally the advance and retard control ring came unseated, and it's now there. Phew. So, I'm now just, I am where I am with it now. But that's been the sort of massive job to try and get it running. And it's really all been down to the fact, you see, the trouble was, every time I had the magneto reconditioned, I thought, well, that's done now. So if it didn't run again, I was blaming something else. Maybe the timing was out, or the tappets weren't adjusted, or there was no compression, or the spark plugs weren't working, or the carburettor was wrong. Because, of course, you've had something reconditioned, you assume it's right. Anyway, there we go. So I now, a year or so later, I've now got a bike. It starts easily, runs great. I've just got a few, I've just got to learn the best way of tickling it to start it, what it likes, what it doesn't like, and so on. But it normally starts first kick. I just made a video and it started third kick. That's typical because it knew it was on the video. But, pretty much there. So I just got a few bits and bobs I want to do to it over the winter to get it right up to spec. I might repaint the oil tank black because I like it black and red, but I still think there's maybe a little bit too much red. So I might paint that black. And I'll look about changing the front sprocket in the primary chain because I think that might be low geared for sidecar. And I'll see about changing that for a bigger sprocket to upgear it a bit because it's happy. You've got a lovely chronometric speedo here, and it loves running at 40. Doesn't really like 50, and at 60, you feel like you're going to shake it to bits. So I might look at that over the winter. But there we go. That's the story really of the bike. So Frank bought it. He had it all redone, but it wasn't right. Stored it for 4 years. I got it, and I've spent a year, even though it's supposedly kind of done, if you know what I mean. Still taking me a year to sort it all out. With all the little myriad of faults it had. But we're finally there. Hurrah. And we've got a beautiful bike and hopefully have it, for a long time to come.